What's up, guys? Squirrely here. Today I wanted to give you guys a video on how to craft some of the gear. I'll try to do every piece, basically, actually. So it might be a bit of a long one, so strap in. Of course, I'll have timestamps for, each piece and everything, so you guys can skip to the ones you want to craft. And I'm not actually going to craft the gear in-game because I don't have all the fractured bases and all the currency to be spending on that right now. I'm trying to save up for a Mage Blood. I'm almost there. I don't want to be wasting it right now, to be honest. But I will show you the crafts in Craft of Exile, and I'll explain it. I'll also have a written guide. I have everything written out already, and I'll make sure there's a guide for you guys. You can follow along in writing, because I know that's always easier, at least for me, and I'm sure for most people. So I'll get you guys that. And I'll probably maybe put it into Google Docs or something and put it in the description so you guys have it at hand. And but I'll explain everything using Craft of Exile too, and just kind of show you guys a more tangible and method of crafting for you guys too, because that's why Craft of Exile is so good, is you can legitimately simulate the craft so that you can make mistakes in a simulation versus in reality where mistakes are costly. So but I'll show you guys that and everything too. And then I might do some explaining as well of some of the endgame changes I've made, because I have made some changes to the skill tree. As you can see, it looks a little bit different here. I'll post a POB with some of the endgame skill tree changes, as well as a Mage Blood POB. If you guys want to, use Mage Blood in this build, which I think it's very good for using that, I'll have a POB that kind of goes and shows what I'd recommend, as like a very, very expensive endgame version of this. Basically perfected. There might still be some things you could make better, honestly. There might be some like juicy rings you could craft with those helical rings or whatever the heck they're called. But I'm not really too familiar with that stuff, so I'm not going to even try it myself. But if you want to go Giga, you could do that. But generally, I'd say if you want to really put insane amount of investments, you might want to, maybe do like Penance Brand of Dissipation or something, or maybe stacking Fortify plus armor and doing shit like that. This build, I mean, it can do pretty much all content, but, it kind of caps at a certain point. So, but I digress. Let's get into the crafting info. So, first piece that I recommend crafting for you guys, and it's a pretty cheap one, is going to be the boots. So we don't need that many mods on these boots. As you can see here, these things aren't super insane. They don't even have a perfect fracture, because I bought this is like the first thing I crafted, and I was being cheap. So I just got a 12% suppress fracture on the boots. The base doesn't matter. Literally any base. Try not to get like an energy shield base, in my opinion. That's not so great, but armor evasion or just pure evasion, just not pure armor, because we need suppress, right? And then 12% suppress did me well here. If you actually want to, I probably recommend just getting a 14% suppress instead of 12, and just spending like the extra currency on it. I'm not sure what they're costing right now, but probably worth it. And then eye level, let me double check here. I wrote this all down. Eye level should be 86. So try to get at least 86. Might be able to get away with something a little bit less, but I'm pretty sure for, I think it's like suppress being tier 1, it's 86. And then to craft them, it's actually quite easy. You just want to be using essences. So I'll show you guys in Craft of Exile too, but let me just pull up the essence tab here. And then there's a few different essences you could use. So let me just upgrade this to illustrate it. Deafening Essence of Greed is a good one. These are cheap, very, very cheap right now. They're like 1C each, I think, maybe 2C. And they guarantee the life roll. It's not like a tier 1 life roll, I believe, but it's pretty close. Maybe it's like 20 life off. So you go that, or if you want to be a little bit more expensive with it, you could do Zeals. You could do Deafening Essence of Zeal, and that gives you a 32% movement speed guarantee. So extra 2% versus the Shrieking. You could also just do Shrieking for 30%. And a 2% MS, it's kind of min-max. I guess you could spend the extra currency to do that, but either one. I found that doing the Deafening Essences of Greed at the time anyways was both cheaper, and it seemed like a little easier to hit the movement speed roll versus getting like a tier 1 life roll, because I was happy with just getting tier 2 movement speed. You can also get tier 1 movement speed, which is also why we want 86. 86 can get you a tier 1 movement speed roll, and that's 35%, which is better than 32, and that'd be pretty cool to get. So if you don't really care about that, you can probably go a little bit less high level. potentially. Like, I think like maybe 84 or something. I probably should have double checked that before this, but yeah, you guys get the gist. Eye level matters, and you can check that on Craft of Exile. And let me show you Craft of Exile, and because I was talking about it a lot, I haven't actually showed it. So here's the site, craftofexile.com. And depending on what gear you're crafting, right, you're going to choose the base here. And then, you know, let's say we have Dex boots, you click Dex, because mods matter on certain kinds of bases. And then you can look and see how it says eye level here. So we can see 14% suppress is 85. And 35% movement speed is 86. So 86 is kind of the best base you can get for eye level for boots. To try to not guarantee getting 35, but at least have a chance, right? And then, but if you don't really care about that, and you only want to go tier 2 suppress, then you can get even lower eye level. And usually lower eye level is cheaper. So, you know, if you're struggling on currency, you can kind of make some concessions on what you buy. But definitely if you're going to craft anything, craft it with a fracture on it. Because fracture makes everything so much cheaper. And it makes it possible to have 6 mods versus 5 mods, basically, on an item that are good, that are useful. So always try to have like a fractured item. And actually, let me just show you guys really quick how to search for a fracture, because this might be something that you're not too familiar with. So let's say we want boots. So type that in, and we have specific requirements, right? Let's say we want evasion for sure, and then energy shield 0 is actually where we should put the max. So it cannot have ES. Is what we're putting basically right there, and it has to have at least 1 evasion, so that it has an evasion base. And then we type in suppress here, because that's usually what we want for fracture for pretty much all our bases, by the way, but boots is included. And then if we want the perfect one, we put that in there. And then item level, let's try to get 86. And then what we need to do as well is make sure you choose that it's fractured. So you have to kind of scroll down, and you'll see the fractured section. You have to retype this in. So 14% is the minimum fractured percent on the boots. So let's search that up and see. So you can see they're about 3.5 divines, depending on the base you get. And these are all level 86. Not too bad, you know, but if you even go lower, let's say we go 12, you can see it's 50C, you know, maybe a little bit more than that, depending on if you get lucky, you know, but yeah, if you have more currency, just get the perfect one. It's not that big of a deal. You know, it's maybe 1 divines versus 3 divines. I think it's usually worth getting the perfect one. It just feels less bad, because then it doesn't feel like you have to recraft it later on and spend more currency, that kind of thing, right? So, you know, I'd buy these, you know, again, the base doesn't matter that much. Obviously a better base gives you more ES potentially, or I mean evasion, but it's not that big a deal. That's how you search for it. And then with Craft of Exile, I'll show you the emulators. Let's emulate it a little bit. But basically for boots, what we want is we want to craft our prefixes first, right? So we're going to be using, let's just choose Velar boots, I guess. Eye level, we're just going to set it to 100. Doesn't really matter. As long as it's above 86 or 86 at least. And then we're going to, so what you can do in the simulator, or this is emulator, I mean. So in the emulator, what you can do is you can search for the affix here. So we're going to choose suppress. And then it gives you, you know, which ones you have. So let's say we're going to have tier 1 suppress. And you see this button here, this little like icon. If you click it, that will fracture it. So that's really nice, you know. And sometimes like there's a chance of it hitting 13. So you might have to click it a few times to get 14. You know, you can just go X, right? So you hit 13 here, just do it again and again and fracture it until you get 14 if you're crafting with a 14%er. And then, you know, that's our base, basically. And then we'll just regal it, because you can't essence a rare item. So we'll just put a regal on that. Obviously, you can also just alk it, or maybe not alk it. I guess it'll be already rare. Usually it's already rare if it's fractured. And then we go to essences. And then we are doing, let's just do the greeds to show you the greeds, because that's what I used. And then make sure it's on tier 1, right? And then we can start, you know, put it on here. And basically we're just stopping until we hit, oh, perfect. Look at this. This is really good. 35% MS. And then we got the life roll too. So we'd stop here, 100%. This is really good. We got pretty lucky. And then even has some chaos res, which we can't actually, you know, make use of that, but that's cool. But yeah, we're actually going to be losing that. Kind of. I guess we could, what could we do with that? I guess we could keep it. So because we will want chaos res. So this is up to you actually. So let's say you do hit this. If you don't really need too much chaos res, you can keep it. Generally though, what you're going to be doing is harvest reforging chaos. So first what we need to do though is prefixes cannot be changed. We need to craft that, which is a suffix, not a prefix obviously. So we craft this. This is about 2 divines by the way per craft. So it's not super cheap. Keep that in mind. Usually most of these crafts that we're doing here, you're going to want maybe 5-10 divines to get these crafts done. The boots are probably the cheapest ones because you don't like, it's pretty easy to hit movement speed. Plus obviously we're only looking for 1 mod with rolling the greeds, which are also really cheap, right? That's why I recommend this as like your first one because it also gets us ailment immunity with ancestral vision, which is super good. So very, very worth it. Then we get prefixes cannot be changed. And then we go to harvest. And so harvest, what you can do is you can do a reforge and put a specific mod. And some items, for example, like these boots, the only chaos mod in the suffix area is chaos res. So you're guaranteed to hit chaos res if you do this, right? So you see I hit a tier 5, actually got even a lower one. If you really want better chaos res and you got some currency to burn, you can just keep crafting suffixes cannot be changed. Or sorry, prefixes cannot be changed. And then reforging chaos. I think I forgot to, okay. What you can also do if you fuck up, undo. Because I didn't craft prefixes cannot be changed because, and the reason why I didn't, we have too many suffixes here. So I'm going to show you guys something else that you can do. So let's say you fill up your suffixes. There is a really nice technique in the game. I don't know if we can simulate it here. I think we can. So Eldritch crafting. What we can do is with Eldritch annulments or Eldritch exalts as well is a thing. Depending on what the dominant Eldritch, I guess, guy is on your gear, you can either annul a suffix or a prefix. So in our case, you want to annul a suffix because we don't want to lose our prefixes. We just crafted those. And suffixes, I believe, are ichors. Let's double check. So you'd want to do greater ichor, and then lesser ember. And then it'll tell you, remove if the Eater of Worlds is dominant, remove a suffix, right? So we get one of these. They're cheap. They're like, 10, 15, 20 C or something. I don't know. They're pretty cheap, though. And then you use that, and it's guaranteed to remove a suffix. So very good if you fill up your suffixes, and you need to craft, prefixes can be changed again. I forgot to do there. That's why, again, it's very important to practice a little bit so that you don't, break a couple divines by accident. And then we go again. And again, you don't have to keep going. You can be satisfied with a better, like a decent roll, I guess. But you can see, if you have bad luck, it can cost a lot of currency. If you have good luck, like I did, I hit tier 1 my first try. Then, yeah, game's easy. And that's crafting for you, so. Yeah, but yeah, we got it. We failed again. So again, prefix is going to be changed. Keep rolling. Tier 3, maybe just settle with tier 3. Again, you can just keep going if you want. But I'd say for boots especially, these are not like a very expensive craft in the first hand. So I wouldn't go crazy on them. Chaos Res is obviously really good to have, but you can get away with 60, even 50 if you're really struggling, I guess. But I'm with 60 right now, and I'm not having many issues. So obviously I'd rather it be capped, but not a big deal. And then the final suffix that we want to be crafting. So make sure, I'm hoping there's an open suffix. So unfortunately, if you don't have an open suffix, what that means is you'll have to do that Eldritch annul again, and then it's 50-50 for you to hit the chaos or the shitty suffix that you don't want. Keep that in mind. Again, you can get unlucky there. Hopefully you don't, but 50-50 is pretty good odds. So hopefully, you don't get too much bad luck there. And then what we want to do is we want to craft, I don't want to go there. We want to craft ailment, avoid ailments. Craft the 20 whatever %. And then there's an Eldritch implicit as well. I don't know if we can put it here. I don't want to bother doing that. But basically there's a Eldritch implicit for 15% LE avoidance, which I'll show you guys on my boots. That's just tier 1, by the way. So really easy to hit. You can see a 15% chance. And this plus the craft plus and the social vision, which is around 2 divines typically. It might be a little bit more now, but I don't know. I think it was like 2 divines for me when I bought it. Plus this wheel gets you 100% avoid elements, and elemental elements, I should be specific. And that's really good because that means 1, we can't get frozen, 2, we can't get shocked, we also can't get ignited, and all those, like ignite's a killer for us because dots are so, you know, horrible. Shock is very deadly. You know, if you're 50% shocked, you're taking 50% more damage. That's a lot, right? And it also allows us to use better pantheons. So now we can do our Akali, which gives us some nice damage reduction against dots. And yeah, that's the main thing. We no longer have to do Brine King for the avoidance of frozen. So it's pretty nice. But yeah, definitely recommend doing the boots. I'd say first. And they're not too expensive unless you get really unlucky. You know, but for me, it was super cheap. And then gloves might be your next best craft. So gloves can be really, really good for damage, right? Because you can get the 18% attack speed mod from Essence, which is a lot of attack speed, way more than you can get on a craft or just even a regular mod. And then also look at this focus mod here. This is a crafted focus mod. 36% increased attack speed. Is a shit ton of attack speed. That is a lot of damage. That is so much damage. That's just, so basically now you have a focus button that you put on your bar. When you press W, you start attacking super fast. So it's a really good kind of like steroid for killing bosses and, you know, just adding some more damage against tanky rares and shit. So I recommend it. I think it's worth it. Obviously you could also just craft Chaos Res if you're really desperate for it, but I think this is hard to pass up in my opinion. But if you hate focus or whatever, then I guess you don't have to craft it. And then the other mods don't matter much. Obviously, we have Fractured Spell Suppress, which is really good. And then the Tier 1 Life Roll, which is really good. And the Evasion doesn't matter. Honestly, it doesn't hurt. But and then the cold damage is actually pretty nice for us because I made a change and I'm now running Secrets of Suffering, which I'll explain later on in the video. But getting some cold damage gives us some more brittle. And so that's pretty nice. But, you know, it's not something you have to get. It's not like required to get on those gloves. You can get cold damage elsewhere, like Ring or Abyss Jewel, stuff like that. But I'll show you guys, explain this craft. It's actually very similar to the boots, right? So again, we want Fractured Spell Suppress. Eye level doesn't matter as much. I believe eye level 84 is the minimum. Let me double check. Eye level 85 actually. So try to get eye level 85 for the gloves. I think that's for the spell, the chance to suppress spell damage or something is for 85. And then pretty much all we're looking for is getting life. So I'll explain that though. So it's also very cheap, typically. The only expensive part about the gloves is getting the +2 veil strikes. Or +2 strikes as a whole. That's rough. But I'll explain that soon. Alright, so let's go to Path of Exile again. We're looking at gloves, decks, and then we'll just go back to the emulator, calculator settings, choose our gloves. Space doesn't really matter that much. Besides getting eye level 85, making sure it has evasion on it. And then first we want to get our fracture. That's going to be suppress. That's 14%. After that. And the reason why I also recommend getting 14% suppress chance on as much gear as you can because it can make the chest craft cheaper. So you only need to get like 20% fractured suppress in the chest. And then we can actually drop the innervate suppress reel completely, which is like 4 points, 5 points. I believe it's 5 points actually. No, it's 4 points. But we can drop that wheel completely and then just get quick step instead, and that'll get us capped on suppress, plus give us some movement speed. It's pretty nice. Gives us a couple extra points. But anyways, we get our fractured suppress chance on the gloves. And then for gloves, we're going to be using Deafening Essences of Zeal. Let's just get these to be rare so we can do that. And like I said, we're not looking for anything too crazy. So we're just going to be using Deafening Essences of Zeal until we hit tier 1 life. We can keep doing that. If you want to spend a few more chaos on this, you can also try to get a cold attack, like attacks with cold or lightning even, or I guess fire is okay too. You know, just like some flat damage on the gloves alongside your tier 1 life roll. But obviously that makes it more expensive because now you're looking for 2 mods instead of just 1, but it's up to you. If you have some more currency, go ahead and do that. But we're going to keep going until we hit tier 1 life, I'd say, is like the minimum. Physical damage to attacks doesn't matter. Try not to, settle on that. You can obviously just settle for tier 2 life if you want to. Not the worst thing, especially if you hit like a hybrid life roll. But I would say try to go for tier 1 life at least, because every bit of life matters in terms of not dying to a one shot or something, right? So basically, yeah, just keep going. Obviously, it can take a while, or it can take no time at all. Here we hit it. It doesn't take that many. It's like AEC spent for these eels. That's not bad. Sadly, it's a 17% roll instead of an 18%, so I guess you could keep going if you want, or eventually you can just divine it as well. I want to spend a divine? I don't know. Probably better to spend a divine, to be honest, and keep rolling. But yeah, we hit it, and then so we got 3 suffixes, which isn't good, by the way. So we actually need to Eldritch Annul the fire res before we do anything else. So hopefully we hit it. So again, we do the Eldritch crafting. So it's the same thing. It's greater Ichor plus a lesser Ember. So that these guys are dominant. And then we Eldritch Annul, and we're going to hope to hit the fire res. And we didn't. So we got to recraft it. That can be annoying because we want to craft the suffix, right? The suffix is really, really important. So, ideally, you have an open suffix. Once you hit, and again, you can just settle for tier 2 life. It always depends a little bit on just how much currency you have, and just if you're willing to settle, because some people just want to craft some perfect gear, and no matter what. So it's up to you, but sometimes it's worth just knowing when to call it quits and be okay with, a little bit of less life. It's only like 10 life at the top end. It's not that big a deal to get tier 2 versus tier 1, right? 124 versus 129 versus 118. Like, is it really worth? It's up to you. Some people say yes, other people say no. But yeah, doing an annul again. This time we hit the fire res. Perfect. 50-50 worked out for us. We also have now 18%. And we got some hybrid defense, roll, which whatever, the prefix in there doesn't matter that much. Obviously, ideally, we have flat damage, but it is what it is. It's not going to kill us to have this. Actually, we have an open prefix, so we can still try to slam flat damage on it. But yeah, what we want to do now is we want to craft. If you have an open prefix, by the way, you should craft a crappy prefix, like for example this one. Some kind of evasion rating increase, or you can also do physical damage, flat physical. We really don't want that. You can craft that on there, and then do a then slam it with an exalt. With specifically this exalt. So you again want to do some crafting here with this. Now you want to do greater Ember and then lesser Ichor. Then you can do a exalted here, and hopefully you get a better hit than I did here. But yeah, you can just kind of finish your craft that way. Again, this final prefix doesn't matter. The prefixes don't matter that much as a whole. You really just want the max life roll, and then one open suffix so that you can then craft the focus mod. This one here. Get that in there. Oh, you don't want that one, because that one you're gonna have to do veiled exalts, which are really expensive. So just craft this. Try to get the perfect one. Why not? It's not expensive. If you want to get bougie with it, yeah, you could do this. But then you have to like prefixes cannot be changed or something, and then Eldritch or exalt veil and pray don't hit the attack speed, and you have to recraft. Yeah, it's way too expensive for this pair of gloves, not worth it. But yeah, once you got this is pretty much, we're done here. We're going to be going for the, what do you call them? I guess it's Eldritch crafting. Yeah, so this is where it gets expensive, and that's why it kind of feels bad to have shitty prefixes. Because you're going to be spending a lot of currency on this part, and you're not going to want to do this again, probably, on another pair of gloves, but it's really hard to get good prefixes. I don't think there's really a good way. If you guys have any good ways, post it in the chat or in the YouTube, just comments or something, but I just don't think there's a very good way of getting it at a reasonable cost, like a good flat damage roll or something. I don't think it's worth it. But anyways, yeah, Grand Embers are going to be what we're going to be using. because that's where we can get the +1 or +2 strikes, is with these Searing Exarch Embers. So this is where it can be really expensive because you got to keep using these grands until you get +1 strikes. I might not be doing this here for you guys because this could take a while, but yeah, you just want to keep clicking until you hit +1 strikes. And you know what, let's try to get it. And you can see I actually rolled over one of them, but it was because it said it had pinnacles in the area. You don't want that. You want just +1 strikes generically, not when there's a pinnacle atlas boss or some shit, because that doesn't help us that much. Just +1 strikes, generic. Keep going. It can be rough. I think it took me like 120, maybe 108, over 100 for sure. And they can be like 5, 6 each, so pretty expensive. I think I read the average is 100, so you know it's at least a few divines probably to get this mod as a whole for most people. I obviously not to roll over it, so don't be clicking too quick. And we need to use grands because if we don't use grands, it makes it a lot harder to over conflict the mod up. So that'll be even more expensive if we don't use grands. Because we have to do orbital conflicts once we hit the mod, and I'll explain that. If I do hit it, I'm hoping I hit it. Better illustrate it. Probably just speed this part up or something, I don't know. Let's see. Okay, we hit it. It took 226, I think. Yeah, it took 226 grand embers. You can see on the right side, it gives you an estimate of how much it would cost. It's 1,000 chaos, including all of the other stuff that we did. It's rough. It's rough. So keep that in mind. The gloves can be expensive, specifically for this part. And we're not even done, by the way. There's still something else we have to do. So now that we got this mod, we need to put exceptional ichor. This is like 50 C or so. Not super expensive. We only need a few of them usually. Put that on there. And the reason why we do that is because this will make this a higher tier than the strike mod. And when we over conflict it, it has a higher chance of upping this versus this one. So we over conflict and you can see it got upped. Now it's tier 3. Make sure you hold Alt on the gloves and you can see if it's exceptional or if it's just greater or grand or whatever. You're going to orbit conflict and you're going to hope that this goes to tier 2 and this goes to tier 4. If it did not, you can either recraft the Grand Embers or just pray. We got unlucky again. You're going to want to definitely do this. All right, we keep getting unlucky. Yeah, we got hella unlucky. Let's just undo. And we're back here. Tier 3, tier 3. Conflict. And now we're at tier 2, and you can see it now targets 2 additional skills. So it's pretty much a 50-50 if you hit it or not. Hopefully you don't get unlucky, because if you don't hit it, it's painful. You know, either you do it orbital conflict again, or you do grands. So yeah, it's a pain. It's rough. It'll probably cost you at least 1,000 chaos to do it. So you know, have some divines on hands before you try to craft it. And once you got that, we're just gonna be doing, I think, I'll explain it more, but basically once you have a Doriani's Merc, I'll explain now. Once you have a Doriani's Merc, getting exposure doesn't do anything for us. That I just hit it first try. We actually want to get the poison chance on hit, 50% chance on hit to poison them, and then we can unspec from the tree the point to give us poison chance, so we get +1 point back. And that's a good implicit. It's good enough. +1 point's pretty worth it. These are gloves, basically. It's pretty much done. So yeah, this step can be really expensive, but we're looking for tier 2 non-veil strike skills, target 2 additional enemies, is what it should say. And that is an exceptional thingy. So that's the gloves. And then we'll take a look at the others. The next big craft I'd recommend doing, and this can be an expensive one depending on what you do, is going to be the chest. So for me to do this chest, I actually ended up fracturing the 22% chance to spell suppress myself. So I really wanted to get the 22% just so that I didn't have to recraft the boots. Not that they're expensive to craft, but you know, ideally, that's why I recommend getting a 14% suppress on the boots so that you can just go with 20% instead. Alternatively as well, if you go with a 20% craft or fracture, you can get a 2% spell suppress tattoo. They're a little expensive, but you could do that instead. But you know, 22% conquest LMLR, eye level 86, you know, fractured suppress. I think it's, when I was looking, it was like 50 divs. It might be higher now. I don't know. If you just want to buy it out. And if you want to try to fracture it yourself, alt spamming isn't too difficult. You can hit 22% spell suppress pretty easily, honestly. And then you just have to regal it, exalt it, so that there's 4 mods. And you got to buy the fracturing orb, which is like 6 divines. And then it's a 1 in 4 chance. So you get lucky or you don't get lucky. I got lucky. I hit it on my first try. If you don't get lucky, -6 divines, and it could, you know, you could do it 10, 15, 20 times and not get lucky. So yeah, it's up to you guys. Probably better just to buy a 20% fracture chest and then get the 2% from here instead. It's gonna be cheaper for sure. So just a tidbit there, but you definitely want eye level 86 and you definitely want conquest LMLR. Definitely both of those things are required. So like you don't need conquest LMLR. It's just the best base. It gives you the most armor and evasion out of all the bases. And then also, what's pretty important about chest pieces is getting a good, doesn't show me here, but getting a good roll on the defenses, because you can see this one has 807 out of 831. And every piece of chest has their own like roll that they have for their like base armor. And you can roll it with sacred orbs, but they're a little expensive. They're like 25C each. It's not that expensive, but you know, but then there's like a huge range that they can roll in, right? So it's pretty hard to get perfect. So try to get like an 85 to 90% base percentile. It'll say in PoE in pathofexile.com/trade. Let me show you guys. When you're looking for a chest piece. We'll type in Conquest Mullar, and we'll also see what the price is nowadays. Let's try suppress. Let's see what 22 is. Level 86. Let's search. I put implicit. I was like, there's no way there's none on the market. Every time. 30 divines. So they've gone down, which is nice to see. That's not too bad. Well, there's a pretty big variance, so I guess it could be more or less depending on what time of day it is. But you know, if you do 20 instead, well, there is no 20s. So, but maybe you can get one for cheaper at 20%. Obviously, that's not the case here. Hopefully, maybe you can buy it from this guy or this guy, and that'll be cool. This guy's already crafted his, by the way. Just buy this one. This one that I'm looking at right here. If anybody's playing this build, 35 divs, that's pretty good for this chest here. Some pretty good rolls. I mean, too bad it's P5 life. That's kind of low, but like it's not amazing, but has a physical damage reduction. It has increased life, which isn't even bad. It's a pretty damn good chest. I'd probably just buy that, to be honest. Up to you though. You can just get this guy, 30 divs, and then craft it yourself. Hopefully maybe there's some cheaper ones. But Fracture Life is probably the best one to do. You could also do Fractured Physical Damage Reduction, but the reason why I don't recommend that one is because with Harvest Reforge, you can guarantee hitting that mod. So it makes more sense to do it that way. But let me explain this craft, because probably the most expensive craft just because the base is so expensive, basically. And also the fossils are a little expensive too. But yeah, we're going to be doing fossil spamming. So, oh yeah, the base percentile you'll see right here. You see this base percentile right here? This one's 71%, this one's 97%, which is also really good. Anything above like 80% is good enough IMO. And doesn't really matter if you're buying the fractured version, but if you're not buying the fractured version, you want to fracture it yourself, then it matters a bit more, you know, because they're around the same price. And people don't really price it based on the percentile typically, so. But anyways, let me show you the Craft of Exile craft of the chest piece. So body armor, dex, dex strength. It doesn't really matter though. It doesn't matter. With some LR. Keep it that. So once again, we're going to choose our fracture, and as always, it is spell suppress, because that is just a pain in the ass mod to hit. There is no way to guarantee hitting it besides just going crazy with you know, spamming your whatever you're using to craft it. So I just like to fracture it, and we'll do a 22%. Again, you can maybe just get away with 20%, especially if you have the extra 2% somewhere else, so that we can drop some of the nodes on our tree. But yeah, make it. We actually don't need to make it rare with fossils, I think, but I can't remember. Anyway, so fossil crafting. If you want, no, you can't do that anymore. Okay, so we're going to be doing dense fossils for this one, because technically we don't want a life roll, technically, but we can do a life roll. It's not a big deal, but technically we don't want. And what we can do here is we just want the singular ones, chaotic primitive resonators, and we just spam. So we're looking for tier 1 armor and hybrid armor evasion flat. So this one's okay, but you can see this is pretty low. This one doesn't matter that much, the increased armor plus block recovery. Ideally it's tier 1, obviously, for the highest defense rolls, but yeah, you could go with this one if you want to just settle. You don't want to spend too much money. It's not bad, but you can get up to, like, you can get over 3k, so I just keep going. And what you can also do, let's say you hit 2 tier 1s. Show you soon if I ever do hit it. What you can do here, so I hit 2 tier 1s, but I'm missing one of the ones that I want. So you can do the good old Eldritch craft. So this one you're gonna be doing Greater Ember and a Lesser Ichor. That should give you a prefix, if I remember correctly. Hopefully I do remember correctly. And we exalt it, and we get a prefix. We got a really shitty life roll, so that sucks. We gotta just keep recrafting, but you can get lucky. I think it's worth it. If you get lucky, then you can just stop, right? And dense fossils are pretty expensive right now. They're like 9-8C, because everyone's using them, so yeah. This is, it can be a little expensive. Let's see, hit right away. If you want to do it again here, you could. It's not a bad one to do the Eldritch Exalts and see what you get. Pretty shitty life roll, so we're just gonna keep going. Tier 3, I think, is too low, personally. Tier 2, you can settle with maybe, but tier 3, it's like, eh. Again, double tier 1. Do the Eldritch Exalts. And I got a tier 1 life roll. So it's up to you. This is pretty damn good. You might just want to stick with this. I probably would just stick with this and be like, all right, I'm dead. I'm done. This is good. It's good enough. And what we do then is we craft prefixes cannot be changed. This is where it can get expensive. So prefixes cannot be changed. And then harvest reforge. And we're doing physical. So when we do that, we're guaranteed to hit this mod. Now, we're not guaranteed to hit a high tier. We hit a pretty good tier, tier 7. So again, if you're short on currency, just go with that. That's fine. You can always recraft this later on if you want to try to get the perfect one. But if you do want to get a perfect one, just keep going. You know, I'd probably just chill here. This is pretty damn good. But if you just want to keep going, you can. We have an open suffix, so we can just craft this again. Craft this again. And we hit 8%. It's not that hard to hit, so go for it. You have the currency to burn against 2 divines per craft. And reforge is cheap. And then the final thing we do is we just put chaos resistance. You know, hybrid, whatever you need. I think that's probably the best one. I know. There's not really much else to do. So, and that's pretty much the chest. You know, I'd be happy with this. Obviously, you could have more evasion and armor. Mine has a little bit more than that because I had a good flat roll. plus the increase, because this hybrid roll is probably like the worst one you can hit. So if you don't want to settle with that, totally fine. You can keep going, but it's up to you, because obviously the expensive part is the suffixes. And so if you don't want to settle, keep going. But I don't know, this is pretty damn good. This will serve you pretty well, you know. Like mine has a little less life, but then it has an extra like 800 armor and evasion, which translates to 1600 total, which then gets increased. So it's a pretty big difference. You know, it's like a, yeah, it's a pretty big difference. So you might want to keep going, because this is a pretty big increase to our physical damage taken, having a high armor evasion total on our armor. So up to you guys, but again, if you're short on currency and don't want to keep spamming, you can just stick with this. That's the chest. You know, not too bad. Not too bad. You know, 1000 chaos. I'd say probably the average is 1000 chaos for the chest and the gloves. Sometimes it'll be more. Very rarely will it be less, I would say. Obviously, for the chest, the base is the most expensive part, to be honest. So, yeah. Those are pretty cheap overall for the base. And then other crafts. I haven't actually done the other crafts myself, so I don't have like examples of them. You can see my shield is one I just purchased. It's pretty fucking good, but I just purchased it, you know, a week ago or something for like 60C. Helm I purchased for 1 div. It's also pretty good, but obviously I can make a better one for sure. But I'll explain the crafts, and then the ring I just bought as well. And this is not very good. You know, it's not terrible, but I'll explain the crafts as well. But I'm not going to do the Craft of Exile stuff because, you know, it's just going to make the video way too long. I'm going to obviously have a post in my in the description again with the written guide, so that should help you guys do those crafts. And then I'm actually going to do the shield craft on stream, or not on stream, but on the video here, just so that you guys have like an actual live example of crafting something. I'll do an actual video example of it too. Why not? At the very end here. But just to go over the and the belt I'll explain as well. I got a pretty nice belt here, but I'll explain how I got it. So the ring, we're going to be doing an amethyst ring, eye level 84, with a tier 1 chaos resistance fracture. And then you're going to spam deafening essences of scorn until you get tier 1 int. So the scorn ones give you crit multi, 21 to 25% crit multi, which is really good for us. And then we need the tier 1 int because int is a pain in the ass for us to get. So that'll really help us be int capped, basically. And we can also put int or attributes, what do we call them, onto this as well if you want to help with your ints. You can also just do life whatevers. But the hard part of this one is going to be the Crusader Exalt, which I think is worth doing. So what you're going to do is, once you get the tier 1 ints and you have your crit multi roll, so you got all your suffixes crafted on the ring, you're going to do suffixes cannot be changed, which you can actually get via a beast, Wild Bristlemation, which is like 0.6 divines, which is a lot cheaper than the 2 divines that it costs from the bench. So that's a nice little tip. And then you want to harvest reforge life. And unfortunately, there's 3 different life rolls you can hit. You can hit tier 1 flat life. Well, not necessarily tier 1, but you can hit flat life. You can hit hybrid life. So that's where it can be really expensive. But I don't think there's really a good other way to do this, to be honest. So I guess you could maybe do... Yeah, I don't think there's really other good other way. I guess if you don't care about the crit multi, you can just get like a int fracture, and then maybe do it. Maybe like craft your prefixes first or something. I don't know, but that's the way I'm thinking of doing it. Again, I haven't done this craft yet, so I might not do it that way. But this is my, I guess, thought on how to do it. And if you hit tier 1 life, then you want to do a Crusader Exalt for lightning damage on shocked enemies. You're guaranteed to hit a Crusader modifier with the Crusader Exalt, but you're not guaranteed to hit that. It's like a 1 in 5 chance. And the other ones are pretty bad. So if you don't hit it, then you can either annulment and pray, or recraft harvest. So yeah, it seems like it's probably really expensive to do it. We'll see if I do it that way or not. But that's my theory crafted way of doing it. If you guys have any other ideas, please post them in the comments, because yeah, it sounds expensive as shit to me, honestly, but maybe there's a better way. For the shield, I'll show you guys the actual craft. For the belt, I'm gonna use mage blood. So I didn't like craft this belt. All I did with this belt, and it's pretty nuts, but I bought this belt without the increased life on it. So it wasn't a hunter belt, it was just a regular Stygian, and it had all the other mods. So it had fire, chaos, cold, and life, and it had no prefix crafted. I actually had 2 open prefixes, which is pretty nuts. So I bought that. It was like 2.5 divines, really cheap. And then I exalt slammed it with the hunter exalt, and I got lucky. I hit the tier 1 hunter life roll. There's tier 1, there's tier 2, and then there's another like shitty roll, another couple mods. I think it's like 1 in 3 chance to hit the life one. And yeah, and then I just pristine fossiled it. Well, not pristine, sorry. I put the you know, again, I can't remember what you call it, the quality on it for life quality, and then I divined it up to 10% max life. And yeah, this thing is a shit ton of life. Very, very nice to have this. Obviously, I can't actually show you because I don't have. I need the strength in this murder side jewel, but yeah, that's just how I crafted this. I guess if you call that even crafting, but I don't recommend crafting your Stygian because again, I think there's better unique belts like Headhunter or Mage Blood to use instead of a Stygian in the end game. So I don't think it's worth spending a bunch of currency on it. And then let's do the shield. So the shield we're looking for is 8% additional physical damage reduction as a fracture. I think that's probably the best one. You could also do increased chance to block as a fracture. You get like 70%. Or no, sorry, not that. You can get the reduced crit damage taken as a fracture. I get 60%. And it's cheaper, typically. But I think it's harder to hit with the Harvest Reforge, the additional physical damage reduction. It's a little harder to hit the higher tier, so I think it's cheaper to get the crit one, or get the physical damage reduction fracture, and then roll for the crit instead. Okay. And then you also want to be using Deafening Essences of Loathing. So this will guarantee you get the increased chance to block, and you get just enough, even with the minimum roll, to have 44%, which is nice. And what we're looking for is tier 1 life. And we're going to just be having our prefixes to start, basically. Let's try it. Let's see if we can get a crafted shield going. Also, it should be eye level 86. Make sure, especially if you're buying the other fracture, eye level 86 is required for the physical damage reduction to hit max roll. And then the base actually matters too. So Cardinal, in my opinion, is the best one because it has the highest base armor and evasion. And then it also has enough chance to block to be 44% with the loathing. You need at least a 26% block shield. So Cardinal is one of them. You can also get like a, I think it's called Spiked or something, Spike Shield, Spine Shield. There's some other ones that work as well, but yeah, don't get one that's less than at least 26% base. So you can make sure you get 44% with the loathing. Give it a try. And we'll just be crafting attack speed instead of trying to hit it, basically. And we're also hoping for tier 2 hybrid life on top of it. You don't absolutely need to hit that, but it'd be nice. Yeah, we hit tier 1 life. Plus 2 max cold res, which is kind of useless. What we can do... We could go with this. And just be happy with that. How much do I want the hybrid life? Let me just check something. Yeah, we can always exalt it and just hope we hit it at the end. So I think we're just gonna go with this. Let's just do this. And you see, it wasn't hard to hit at all. Now this suffix, even though it's not terrible, we're not gonna keep it. So we need to do prefixes cannot be changed on this guy. Let me double check here. Harvest Reforge crit. Let's give it a try. You know what? Before I try it, let's do some more. I have so many loathings. Let's just do some more loathings. Let's keep going. Let's see if we can get hybrid. these things are pretty cheap, so. Okay. I think we just say fuck it. We'll go with the tier 1 life. Pain in the ass. I don't feel like keeping on going. If you want to craft a better shield, you can just keep going, but we'll go with this. Okay, so we're going to be doing... Prefixes cannot be changed. That's 2 divines. Just sad, but you got to do it. And then we are doing Harvest Reforge Crit. And we already hit it. Easy. So you want tier 1, right? So that you get the highest percent chance you can get. And you can always divine this up, I guess, if you want, but you don't have to. And then we have an open prefix. So we want to craft the attack speed. All right, get 12%. Get 12%. There we go. And then because it's fractured, we can't do a exalted orb, like a hunter's exalted, sadly, because you can't hunter exalt or influence a fractured base. And then pretty much we just YOLO exalt. There's nothing else we can really do besides YOLO exalt. Let's see what we hit. Not bad. Tier 2 increased evasion. I'll take it. This thing also has pretty terrible base rolls, actually. It's like basically that's very zero, but honestly it's like not a big difference anyways. So, you know, ideally obviously we hit like hybrid life, it gets more life on there, but I'm okay with this too. And you can see, so compared to these two, I mean, this thing was pretty damn good. I was pretty happy with this, but this one has more armor evasion. It has slightly better reduced damage taken. It has better physical damage reduction, has more life. Kind of like 5 extra life. Not very much more life, but it does have a little bit more. It was a pretty bad roll, actually, wasn't it? Could have kept it stuck with the other one. And has attack speed. Only thing it doesn't have is the max fire res, which isn't a bad thing to get because we do convert some physical to fire. But overall, this is gonna be more damage, or more damage and tankier since PDR is better. And of course, we're gonna be, and that was really cheap to craft, right? That was like nothing. It was like basically just 2 divines. The base was 1 divine. I bought it for 1 divine, super cheap. Make sure to do that first. And we get into reds and a green. Link that sucker. I think we don't even need a 3 link, but whatever. And we got a new chest or shield. So that's just a nice little example of how you can craft in this game. It's really not difficult anymore because Harvest Reforge is really, really powerful for exclusive mods that, you know, only have 1 that you can hit, right? So maybe illustrate that. I didn't really illustrate that, but you can see if something is hittable or not with 1 reforge. So we're looking at our shield here. We can see what can spawn on it, I guess you could say. And you can see physical, this physical tag. There's only 1 of them. There's only 1 physical tag here. So that means it doesn't share any mods in that mod pool. So you can only hit physical damage reduction if you reforge Fizz. So it's deterministic. It's super good. You can also see it's out of level 86. That's why you need that. I don't know why I'm showing that because it's not like a reforged Fizz. The critical one. Where's my critical? Am I looking at the? Where's my crit? Here it is. See, there's a critical mod here. It's the only critical mod. The only critical mod in the suffix list. So if you reforge crit, you have to hit this. And also the reason why I think this is cheaper is because there's only 4 tiers versus the physical damage reduction, which has 5 tiers. So it's not that much less, but still better odds overall. But obviously, if the costs are equal, you can just get either one. Or if one's cheaper than the other, get either one. I guess you could do that. But yeah. Also, the percent chance is a little bit higher. I don't know how much that matters, but it might matter because it's only the one that you can hit anyways. But yeah, there we go. There's a shield craft live, hot off the press. I'll be using that. And you know, it's not like a mirror tier shield, don't get me wrong, but it only cost me like 3 divines, 3.5 divines to craft it, right? I still got tons of loathing left. I could have even stopped at the first time I hit the tier 1 life, but I kept going because why not? It was fun. And you can just resell them. right? I have 40. I definitely don't need 40. I can just sell 40 of them again. Bada bing, bada boom. So there we go. Everything else I think I showed you guys. And then let me just go over the endgame stuff real quick on, you know, some of the changes I made. So obviously when you have good suppress in your gear, you can just drop the inveterate wheel because you don't need that much suppress. You can just get quick step instead. And quick step is nice because it gives you the suppress that we need to finish capping our stuff out. And then it also gives us movement speed, 9% movement speed. That's pretty damn good. And it's also in the range of our lethal pride, so we can get whatever is on there from the notable. So that's pretty cool too. I am still running the multi-shot wheel specifically because I want monsters to kind of block your attacks, and I want the strength from the small nodes because if without it, I don't have enough strength to wear my chest. So that's why I'm getting this. This is not actually efficient. It's just what I have to do for my build. And then for the cluster, we're running attack damage while holding a shield cluster because Precise Retaliation is a very strong node, or notable. 30% crit multi we blocked recently, which that's probably a yes. And even if you haven't, you still get increased crit chance, which isn't bad either. So I think it's really good. And then I'm just having Smite the weak because that's just what I rolled. It's not ideal. Ideally, you get martial prowess, but I don't feel like rolling them more. And then Veteran Defender is something I need to have personally because I need the all attributes, you know, to get the int and the strength to equip all my shit. But if you don't need the attributes, then you don't have to get this. It's up to you and depends on your character and what you have. But yeah, for me, I needed it. And then the all elemental resistance plus the increased defenses from shield isn't bad either. My shield has some pretty good armor on it, actually, so, and evasion, so it's pretty good for defenses. And then resistances are always welcome, even if being overcapped is, it's not even a waste because, you know, there's some things that reduce your LOE resistances, so it doesn't hurt to have being overcapped. I cut this wheel out, or this area out entirely. You can see I don't even have rage on hit, I don't have the crit wheel here, I don't have this wheel, mainly because now I'm just getting these nodes. And then I'm anointing Sion's Ambition because I just have enough damage. I don't need to anoint a damage node, and this is really nice for just quality of life plus clear because now you can attack from 40% further away, which is pretty big. It's a lot of distance to an enemy that we can put ourselves on now. So a little more defensive as a melee build. You know, we can put some better distance from us to the enemy, and yeah, I recommend it. And then let's see what else I did. I got part of the oak, so I went I got some points here and here, and I actually anointed, well, I should say anoint, but I put some tattoos for avoiding stun. You need 8 of these alongside Heart of the Oak for 100% avoidance, and now I just cannot be stunned. So that's a nice quality of life as well because stuns can kill you. Not just quality of life, it's just defensiveness, right? So that's a good way to get stun immunity. And then the rest of the tattoos are effect on marks because that improves our crit multi with assassin's mark on the enemy. Very strong. So I'd buy those up until you cannot anymore. So 217 dex, we need at least 212 dex to wear Paradoxica. So try not to get less than that, obviously. But yeah, that's how we use those tattoos, just dex tattoos. And then I'm actually using Secrets of Suffering. I decided that this would be more worth it than the Light of Meaning here, and I'm using Watcher's Eye instead of Light of Meaning because I think Watcher's Eye gives us increased life, which is nice. And then the damage mods are pretty competitive. They're not quite as much as Light of Meaning, but it's close. You can get some good mods on this. I'm using the Penetration while affected by Wrath, which is pretty good, but I think attack speed's better. And then obviously you definitely want crit multi from the Anger. So yeah, Secret of Suffering, it gives us Scorch, Brittle, and Sapped. So Scorch reduces the LE res of the enemy when you do fire hits, which we do a fair bit of fire with Anger. Sapped reduces their damage that they deal to us up to 20%, which they're going to be 20% damage reduction for sure every time because we do so much lightning damage. And 20% less damage taken is a lot of damage taken. That's another Fortify. We got Flesh and Stone, which is 20%. We have Fortify, which is 20%. We have Sap, which is 20%. Like my Fizz max hit is 30k without Molten Shell. I can even something like that. It's pretty insane. And our LE max hits are like 45, 50k almost. So it's very good. I think it's worth it. And then we just use Skitterbots linked with Unbound Ailments. Awaken Unbound specifically. Awaken gives better ailments. And that gives us Shock and it gives us Chill. So we get 2 more ailments as well on top of the other 3 ailments we're inflicting. Now, it also gives us Brittle. Brittle is really good because it gives us base crit on the enemy. But we're not doing that much full damage as a whole. So in order to get the 2% brittle that we need to be crit capped, we need some crit damage, some flat cold damage, I mean, on some of our stuff. So I got it on my Abyss Jewel, and I got it on my gloves because I got lucky. You can also get it on your rings. Right now I have fire damage, just it shouldn't be that. Honestly, I should have cold damage for better brittle chance. That matters more than Scorch because we have the anger to handle Scorch. So yeah, try to get some flat cold on your ring, your jewel, and ideally gloves. Obviously, it's hard to hit, but you could try to get it, and that'll help with brittle. You can also get a Crown of the Tyrants if you're lucky. I got this from a Valdo's map, and but they're expensive. They're like 28 divs, so I wouldn't go to your way to buy one unless you're really rich. But they give you a ton of flat damage, and you can actually roll the socket to be, you know, blue for added lightning or blue or green for cold, I believe. So yeah, really powerful. But it does of course make your merc less tanky. You can see her cold res is 32% right now. But she's still not dying for the most part. Sometimes she dies, but usually it's because of some crazy shit that's happening in the map. But yeah, very powerful, but very expensive. You don't need to run it. And oh, just to show some merc stuff. So obviously we're having Doriani's super OP, and we're getting the negative lightning res still. String of Servitude is still being used. Something I added recently is the Wrath effect. So on a character that can use dual wands, which is the Storm Hands. There's also another one, not Storming Zealot, I don't have him, but there's the Reverend, Fallen Reverend can use wands. But you can actually get Wrath effect on them. And you can buy them for, I think it's like 1 divine, maybe 2 divines on the wands, 1 to 2 divines. Or you can just craft them yourself, and it's really easy to do it. It's super easy. Honestly, just craft them yourself and maybe even just flip them, you know, make some currency if you want. Basically, you just buy a Crusader wand. And the eye level like doesn't matter. I think it could be any eye level. 84 is fine probably. Maybe not any eye level, but you can double check on Craft of Exile, but it doesn't need to be like a high eye level. And then you're just using random essences until you get Wrath effect. Literally just whatever essence you want. It doesn't matter. There's no way to guarantee hitting Wrath effect. So like you can't do Harvest Reforge. There is a fossil that gets more aura, but it's expensive. It's not worth it. You literally just use Screaming Essences. Right? It just doesn't matter, man. It's crazy. Literally just doesn't matter. I don't think you can do Wailing because, you know, you should be level 75 or below. But do Screamings. Literally any Screaming. Whatever dog shit Screamings you have in your stash. Throw it on the wands until you get 30+% Wrath effect. And then either sell them for currency or use them. I just used them. But yeah, you could just sell them for, you know. You buy the base for like 20, 30C. Throw some shitty essences on it. Sell it for 1.5, 2 divs. Profit. Pretty cool. But yeah, do that for the Merc. Get some Wrath effect. And she'll be pumping damage, man. And it hasn't changed. I saw the Whispers of Doom with the Enfeeble gloves. Conductivity, I don't know if that's overriding it. Probably is, but I don't really see it being used often, so whatever. Just to go over some impactful upgrades that might not be super obvious. Specifically the gems. It's very easy to overlook gems and think that, oh, there's no point in getting those things upgraded, but they can actually add some pretty good damage. So one of them is actually Mark on Hit. Getting a 2120 Mark on Hit, not that expensive. And it increases your Assassin's Mark by a fair bit, you know. So that's pretty nice. And then obviously you want 2020, but Assassin's Mark, 2120 doesn't really matter. Levels don't really matter that much. I mean, it does, but 20 like +1 level doesn't really do anything. Getting a 21 Flesh and Stone is 1% extra DR, maybe even a little bit more because of a scaling effect. But yeah, definitely get 21. It's cheap. And then you can get a 2120 Blood Rage. I don't think the 21 part matters though. Just get a 20% Blood Rage for sure though. 2020 Blood Rage. 21 Skitterbots for better chill effect and shock effects, like 1% extra. Then level 21 Anger. Very, very cheap. May as well get it. Some good damage. Getting 2020 gems. 2120 crit damage doesn't matter much. So just get 2020. But level 6 and added lightning matters a decent amount. You get more flat damage, which is pretty nice. And then definitely get level 5. Level 5 is super important, minimum. Level 6 awakened doesn't matter that much. Stick with level 5 to be honest and sell your 6 awakens. It's like 1% more damage. Multi-strike is very strong, but awaken multi-strike is super expensive, and a 2120 multi-strike is also pretty expensive. It's not worth it. I would just say for awaken multi-strike eventually. 2120 volatility is worth it. It's actually a fair bit more damage. I don't even have that yet. Probably should get it, but it's actually a fair bit of damage. And then 2120 Veil Smite. Very expensive. It's like 10 plus divs. But if you do 2120 Veil Smite in your main link, that allows you to make use of Awakened Elemental Damage level 5 so that you're immune to Ellie Reflect, and you won't ever kill yourself with Reflect. Because if you do an Ellie Reflect map, every time you Veil Smite with your other Veil Smite, it will do the elemental damage and you will die. You'll get one shot. So either you don't Veil Smite, which feels bad in an Ellie Reflect map, or you just get a 2120 Veil Smite and put it in your main link. Probably just better to do that. But 10 Divines, kind of expensive. It's not something I'm doing yet until I get Mage Blood and shit. That's like, you know, min-max. But yeah, just to show you some like easy upgrades in some of the gem slots. Some of them are easy, some of them are expensive, but some of them are, yeah, definitely super cheap. And then, like I said, I'll put a Mage Blood POB in the description. That's what I'm going to plan on being on using once I'm there. And there's going to be the crafts that I'm recommending doing. Yeah, that's all in the POB basically. And then the flask setup is in there. So if you want to see how I'm going to set up my flask, that's how I'm going to do it. But flask is very much subjective. You know, I'm not even running a life flask, but you might want to. I might want to in the end because, again, degen is a bitch. You could run Vitality over Precision for better regen or against egen. And Precision still gives us crit chance, so it's still good. But accuracy matters less when we're attacking super fast, because even if with like 50% accuracy, eventually we're going to hit without like too much effort, and then they're going to be taunted. So honestly, it's not the biggest thing. I barely notice it when I take off Precision, honestly. So Precision isn't super useful there anymore, now that we have pretty good attack speed. But with the crit chance, it's still very nice, unless you're crit capped without it, which you might be. And if that's the case, then yeah, you can just run Vitality. But our max hits are going to be really good. Like I said, you know, 30k Fizz max hit without Molten Shell, 45k Ellie hits. Like, we're chilling. You know, we're really tanky. So, it's really good. And obviously a high block. Eventually, what I'm going to do is get more than skill Forbidden Flesh jewels. I'm going to get this cluster as well. And more than flesh, or more than skill, I mean, with Forbidden jewels. And then we'll be 88% block chance, which is pretty fucking good. I'm a fan of basically being immune to damage, personally. I think it's pretty good for running like really juiced content, like tier 17, 8 mod type shit, you know. You can probably do that with this build at the very, very end game with everything completely min-maxed. You might want to switch to something like Penance Brand of Dissipation if you want to literally be mod agnostic, but, you know, because there's still going to be like no leech is really, there's nothing you can do about it. You just have to like, you have to run a mana flask, basically, and that's pretty cringe. But I guess you could. Yeah, there's some mods that really suck. But eventually we can be ignoring almost every mod, you know, with this mastery and just some other things that can help. But yeah, it's not going to be the perfect, like, giga build of Doom. You might want to swap off once you're extremely rich, you know, you got mirrors and shit. Then maybe it's time for, you know, Fortify armor stacking or, yeah, different build like Penance Brand. But, you know, I'm happy with the build. I mean, it took me all the way to the very end. I was killing Ubers. I've killed Ubers with it. I've done, you know, some pretty crazy maps. I've been doing the Blight strat, Titanic Blight, where you have to have insane amounts of damage to do it. You know, the guy who showcased it had like a Mage Blood and like mirror tier gear, and I'm not doing it with that stuff. I'm doing it with way less investment than he had. And I still sometimes fail it, because of, you know, shitty mods that I should have rolled over or whatever, or I just misplay it. But, you know, I'm pretty happy with what I can do, you know. And the tankiness, like, I'm not dying to pretty much anything unless it's completely juiced out, right? There are some like crazy, you know, 7-8 essence mobs, bosses that will just one-shot you regardless. You know, it's definitely still a melee build where you have to duel it out with the enemy to some degree. And yeah, with 90% block or 88% block, you probably will not die, but the 10% chance that he hits you, you might get one shot by, you know, some of these Giga Juice mobs. You know, it's not like a minion build, right? The, what's that other minion build there that is super good for killing shit because the mob never attacks you, it just attacks your minions, right? Like there's builds that have higher potential, but for a league starter, I think it served extremely well, and it's actually fun to juice it out. It's fun to play. been really happy, and I hope you guys who have played the build have been enjoying it as well. Again, if you guys need help, join the Discord. We've been active in there, helping people out. I'm of course active in it. You can also join the stream whenever I stream, which I stream pretty frequently. Usually, you know, 5 days a week, Tuesday to Saturday, every 6 to 9 p.m. Sometimes longer than that, depends on when I go live. And thanks again for all the subs, all the views, all the likes, and all that shit. You guys, I really appreciate the support. And yeah, I think that's everything I can think of to mention. So hope this video helps you guys, and peace.